Hi guys, it's Maudie with Seeking Happy. I'm back again with another video today because I have some really big news that I wanted to share with you guys. Don't I sound like so much better, by the way? I'm getting over my sickness just a little bit. Yesterday was a very big day for me. It was a day with mixed emotions, but I started out the day with like this secret mission, and it was to overcome one of the biggest fears I've had in my whole life: driving. So I haven't shared with you that much about my whole driving experience, but I am a person that struggled with anxiety in my life for years at a time, and to pretty big measures. Really, I mean, a lot of people that know me now don't even know the way that I've struggled with anxiety. I started getting it really bad in middle school, and then it just kind of grew. Every year it got worse and worse. And if you have struggled with anxiety, maybe you know it's like the more you make allowances for that in your life, for the fear, for like your fear to be making your decisions, the worse it gets, because it just slowly controls more and more in your life. So after I finished high school, because I think as a kid you have to do so much, you don't really have a choice. So it was a struggle, but I struggled through the regular things in life. And a lot of people would not have even known that things were such a struggle for me. So when I finished high school, I kind of stopped doing a lot of the things I was supposed to do. I didn't work a traditional job, and I didn't drive. And I moved in with my then boyfriend the day after graduation, and I ended up living with him and his family for a while. But I did it in a really unhealthy way because I didn't do those things and I didn't kind of advance my life. So I ended up like staying at a standstill in a lot of different things, and my anxiety just skyrocketed. And it got to the point really where I didn't leave the house at all for a while. I think I was in this kind of phase for 1 to 2 years. My anxiety was really bad and my depression was really bad. And it took everything I had really to pull myself out of that. And then it was just so difficult to try to start doing those things, like getting back into what my life kind of should have been. And I spent a lot of years trying to play like catch up with that. One of the things that got super thrown off was me driving. Like when I was a kid, I always looked forward to driving. I knew I wasn't going to be handed a car at 16 or anything. So I wasn't really like anxious, like, oh, it's going to happen. It's, you know, I'm going to be driving myself to school and stuff. I think that that's part of why I kind of prolonged the learning process. And then when I moved out with my husband, he would take me places. I didn't have a car and I didn't know how to drive. So it just kept getting put on the back burner until one day I was like, oh, I'm older and I don't know how to drive. This could be a problem. And then I just started freaking myself out about driving and not being able to drive. And it grew into this really big fear of driving. Like, I think when you're young, part of the reason that driving is easier is because you don't take things as seriously as they are, kind of. So when I kind of was growing up, I just took things very seriously. And I was like, people get in accidents when they drive. Like, you can't be a bad driver. You could kill somebody, which is true. I mean, honestly, it's true. So that was kind of my thinking, like, every time I got in a car. So I had a really hard time learning to drive, and honestly even getting somebody to try to take me to learn to drive, because it was a really difficult thing. I think, you know, I created a stressful situation because I had all this fear and worry, and I didn't basically have any confidence in my skills to do it. So it took me a while to realize I was like sabotaging even my chances to learn to drive, because the people who were taking me were seeing my fear and basically losing all their confidence in me. And the thing is, I was not even a bad driver. Like, ever since I had been younger and I had a few driving experiences, I drove fine. It wasn't the driving, it was the fear. And for me, like, I even had times when I drove, like, all my family lives on the other side of town, San Antonio. It's a big city, so it's a long drive to one of their houses. And I've driven that Like, I've done that. I had done that drive, but to me, it was like I had not done it because my anxiety was so bad. I honestly was not breathing the whole trip. And it was more like I was just like struggling and trying to get through that moment rather than actually absorbing anything about driving, about what I was doing. I was just like mid panic attack or edge of panic attack the entire time. So obviously when you're doing that, you're not learning anything, you're not gaining any confidence. And I went through years where I would drive in that way, like as if I was just struggling and trying to get through that moment of being in the car, and nothing was being absorbed. It wasn't until recently that I was kind of like taking account of my life, and like I said, you know, I've been trying to be proactive in fixing things in my life and getting them to where I'm more satisfied with the way I'm living. And that was a huge one. Obviously that one was a huge one. Like, it has not only cost me so much independence and like so many things in my life I've had to work around. Can I get somewhere? Will I have somebody to get me there? It's just made everything so much more complicated. But excuse me. Sorry, I'm still a little sick. But honestly, something that big that you're afraid of for that long, it doesn't even matter what it is. Well, I know a lot of people are afraid of like snakes and heights and things you don't really have to do. But being afraid of something that you kind of have to do and that everybody else does really like eats away at your self-esteem and, you know, just how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your life and if you feel content or not, which the answer is not. So it was, you know, a really deep ongoing fear for me, but I really didn't know how to overcome it. And, you know, I really wish I had a magic answer as to how to overcome it, but honestly, I think I just got to the point, sometimes with fears, you get to the point where finally the cost of going on with that life is a greater cost than living in that fear. Because most of the time in my fear, even though it sucked, even though it made everything suck, I could survive, and it was easier. It didn't make sense and it wasn't the best or anything, but in my mind it was easier for me to continue with the fear and get somebody else to give me a ride that day than to overcome the thing I was most afraid of. Like, people who don't understand it, which a lot of people did not understand it. I felt like nobody understood it. But when I started putting the fear out there, I started realizing that there are a lot of people, honestly, right now that are living, that are adults, that are afraid to get on the road and drive, and it is a tough thing to overcome. And it's a tough thing because honestly, it is so scary. Like, you do face like big decisions and you can make big mistakes. But a lot of people didn't understand that fear. And my husband is afraid of heights. So I kind of told him, when I'm getting in the car, when I'm starting to drive, it's as if you were standing, which, you know, I'm not afraid of heights, but I know how he feels. And I was like, it's like if you're standing on the edge of a building and you have to bungee jump. And I know that wouldn't happen, but imagine the way you would feel. Now imagine that bungee jumping was a regular part of life and everybody did it and you had to do it feeling the way you feel. Like, you wouldn't feel different. You would still feel the way you feel, but you would feel this immense pressure to do it, which does not make fear easier to overcome or anything. So that's how I felt. I felt like everybody was doing this thing that was like this traumatic experience to me, but telling me that I should be doing it. I just think the fear behind it is very, very real. And I think a lot of the people that I talked to that did have that same fear felt really not validated by the world, as if we're acting crazy or something. Obviously it's not a choice that makes a whole lot of sense or anything, but the fear was very real. So if you have somebody in your life that has this fear, please try to treat them with compassion and understanding and realize that your fear might not be the same as their fear, but fear itself is something I think we can all relate to, and maybe you can be, you know, understanding in why they, or how they feel. even if you don't know why they feel that way. I didn't even know why I felt that way, really. Although, I kind of tried to share with you my journey of it. So anyways, I did get to the point where I thought, I'm not going to live this way anymore. I have to conquer this fear. If I conquer this fear, I'll feel better about myself than right now coping with my life. Coping, that's the word I was looking for. Coping with my life the way it is and just kind of continuing on this way with this huge looming thing over my head. So I did start trying to practice to learn to drive. I really had to like fake my own confidence and go to certain people in my life and be like, look, I need help. And thank goodness I did have a couple of people in my life that were offering of that help. That was like so wonderful. And really I needed all their positivity and fed off of all of their good energy to make it a reality that I even get in a car. But I did. I got in a car and I would practice driving like every day if I could. I would drive myself to work and from work because I lived close. And I would drive like to different little places around where I lived. And with some people I would drive like in parking lots. Like I would drive wherever they were willing to teach me. That's what I would do. But it was really wonderful in the end because I had 4 really positive people who taught me all different things. And I just felt like I had this network of support. And in the end, that was like so helpful in actually getting me to drive. And my younger sister, I'm going to say sister right now. My younger sister, I've always kind of tried to give her advice for her life growing up because I did everything before her. And I think it's really nice to have advice for something you haven't done yet. She ended up being, you know, in the position where she learned to drive before I did. And she was really loving and helpful and stepped up and was the first one really to step up and say, I'm going to help you achieve this goal. And it was so wonderful. And the thing is, she understood where my fear came from. And she was able to really put it to me in a way where I could overcome the fear. And just kind of get past it in that moment, psych myself out of it, and then be in the mind frame where I was actually absorbing information for the first time ever, like actually getting better at driving. And that was the key thing that took me through all the other lessons, you know, like I wasn't able to learn to turn well or to park or any of those things until I learned to just be in the car without fear or overcoming the fear. So I am eternally grateful for that. That was like the best gift that anybody has ever given to me, or loving thing that anybody has ever done to me, for me. So that was really, really wonderful, and thank you so much, Marco, for that. But anyways, yesterday was a very big day because I secretly, behind everybody's back, except my husband, went to go take my driving test. And I passed it. And I couldn't believe it. So I wanted to tell some people in person. I wanted to make sure to go and tell my mother in person first. And I told Marco because she was amazing. She's like the first person I wanted to tell. And of course my husband was with me. He took me to the driving test. So he was the first person that actually knew. But the feeling coming out of the car, I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion. The feeling coming out of the car knowing like that I was certified to drive was just amazing. I feel like, you know, I have conquered one of the biggest fears that I've ever had. I've had such anxiety and, you know, such worries and fears, but this has truly been the biggest one I've faced in my life so far and the hardest one to overcome. And I'm just amazed with myself that I've done it. And that is so much of what I want to be doing with my life right now. Just pushing myself to break out of what I've been settling for in life and take those actions to have the life that I want. And it's not like, you know, I'm a magical, wonderful driver now. Although I'm not a bad driver, to reiterate, I was just very afraid. But now I've gained even more confidence because now I can drive as, you know, this as a certified driver that can be out on the road by myself. So I'm really looking forward to just taking like some peaceful drives to places that I want to, and kind of finding a way where that fits into my life. And I think then, you know, I'll really, for the first time, experience a love for driving rather than a fear of it. So I'm just so excited. I really, you know, I'm just filled with such gratitude and such awe, and it's really inspiring me to kind of push in other areas of my life and continue to just make things happen. And, you know, it is so possible, no matter how stuck you feel like you are in life, it is so possible to turn things around. It just really takes so much dedication. Like, you just have to push. Even though you don't feel strong enough to push, even though you don't feel like the one who can do it because you're the one that's afraid, just get to a point in your life where you decide you're gonna make it happen, and then you really can. It really is amazing. So that was my big news. Don't I look like a different person? Just kidding. But I feel like a different person. And I was just so happy. I wanted to share it with everybody. I wanted to share it with the world. So this is me letting everybody know that I am now a driver. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear anything else about my driving experience, my anxiety, how I got through that, the tips and tricks that I used to do that, or how the driving test was, because I was so nervous about that, like, because driving was a nerve-wracking thing, but also taking a test is a nerve-wracking thing. So I know for me that was a little, you know, nerve-inspiring or anxiety-inspiring. So if you want to hear any of those things, feel free to comment below. I will let you know all that I can, and I'll also maybe do a couple more videos on the topic because there's just so much. There's just so much I need to tell you. But like I said, thank you for listening. Any of my videos, feel free to share with anybody that you think might find them of interest. And feel free to subscribe so you can hear my other things going on in my life, what I'm trying to do and attempt, and also all the fun stuff like the packages I open, and those things make me happy too. All right, thank you guys so much. Bye.